Hey guys, Henning and Morten from FlippedNormals here. In this video, we are going to be talking about some of the harsher truths about working in the creative industry. We want to start this off though by saying that this is awesome. It's an awesome field to work in. We don't want to scare people away by thinking that we are two old bitter guys who hates all this kind of stuff, which you do see some people who are. We really enjoy it.
We're two jaded 27-year-olds. Yeah, that's what it is.
Exactly. Yeah, we just want to talk about some of the realities of the industry.
Yeah.
More so than the depressing old facts. And so we briefly actually just left the jobs at the studio we worked on. We worked at DNEG for around 2 years, and it was a great time. Worked on super cool movies and. Really just had a good time. We were doing creature modeling and texturing and all that kind of stuff. And
maybe we should start out. Like I've been doing this since I was 16, I think. I started working professionally when I was 16 for some ArcVis companies, doing visualizations, moving on to commercials, and then into VFX afterwards. So that's a good 10, 11 years now. What about you, Henry?
Yeah, very similar. Started when I was 15, 16, and just been doing this for a long time now. I've almost been doing it for longer than I haven't.
Yeah, that's actually scary.
So now recently we just went full time on FlippedNormals just in the last few weeks now, which has been very exciting. So now we can bring you tons of more stuff here. So now that we're not in the field anymore, well, we're still in the creative field, just not working for an employer directly. We have some more freedom to talk about different things.
Yeah.
So in this one, we just want to talk about just some of the realities of working in the industry, like aimed at people who are not yet in the industry. They might be students, or maybe you're like a young professional, and you just want to get a bit to know about it. So one of the things we want to briefly talk about before we get into all this is we've been seeing a lot of students now with very overinflated confidence, which is always kind of heartbreaking. This might not be because they think they're the best thing in the world, because they know the work is good. One of the things we see a lot is due to social media now. You post your stuff, you get 200 likes on our Facebook. That might not be representative at all of the quality not even of the quality, but particularly not of the quality for getting a job. Let's say you're doing some kind of like sexy woman or like a celebrity likeness sculpt or something like that. It might not be the best thing, but because it's a popular thing, because you're doing like Spider-Man or something, you just get a lot of attention for that. So now you think that you are super hot shit and you come into the field now and you start applying for things and you just get rejected like crazy.
Yeah, you see it. I'm not a big fan of Facebook as a medium for getting feedback.
No.
I mean, I'm sure you have some really good groups. I just haven't found them for 3D or 2D feedback or whatever it is. But I feel like a lot of the stuff that gets posted on some of the bigger groups there is just it's a weird thing where like all the groups have this rule that you can't do any self-promotion, first of all. But by posting your own stuff, you're technically doing self-promotion.
By definition.
Right? And then the feedback that people get is like, it's in the form of likes and in the form of these words, oh, that's awesome. Something like that. And then people go like, oh, okay, people like this. This must be really good then. And you keep posting these things. And maybe you're a decent artist, but by getting this kind of feedback, in quotation marks, you're not actually getting any feedback.
No.
And getting the right kind of feedback there, I think, is super valuable, especially when you're starting out.
Yeah, you want to get feedback from people who have they're neutral. They don't look at your Spider-Man sculpt and they're the biggest Spider-Man fan in the world and they're like, this is awesome. They're looking at it from a technical point of view, like, can you model Spider-Man?
Yeah.
Like, are the UVs tight enough? Like, is the anatomy there and all that? They're actually analyzing work instead of just being like, super cool. One of the reasons we've been inspired to talk about this specific thing is I was at a student event just yesterday, and a bunch of people there, they've been told by other professionals and just by like people who come through school, maybe they're on a recruitment trip or something similar, and this person might not have a heart to tell them that their stuff isn't super good. They're just looking at it. They're not really there to give them feedback, and they're just like, this stuff is super nice. And it's not. They've been like, you should contact all the big studios and it's really super tight. But in reality, maybe it's it's not. And that's really heartbreaking because now you have these people who are you're just applying everywhere. They're applying to like Blizzard and everything because they've been told by a professional who might not just had the heart to tell them their stuff wasn't good enough. And now they're going to get their heart crushed because there's a Blizzard, they don't want them. which is always so, it's really just heart crushing for me to see that. So we want to just talk about that. Like when you are getting into the industry, you just need people who you can trust. And by trust, I don't mean a good friend who will have your back, like at a pub or something. I mean somebody who you can trust for professional level feedback. And this might be a bit controversial, but that is not your teachers. I don't trust general teachers in universities to give proper feedback.
Not the people, because like oftentimes the way that creative fields are taught is that you have a teacher who is a teacher.
Yes.
It's not a professional anymore. They might have been teaching for 10 years and they might be very good at teaching,
yes.
but their sort of quality, their standard starts to drop and they see the same thing over and over again. They think, oh, this is really good. This should be good enough. But the reality is they don't know. They don't know what it requires anymore.
And they haven't been really tasked to produce anything of quality, maybe ever. Maybe they have literally no experience. They've never had to produce quality work. So some of the people I spoke to yesterday, they were talking about the school they went to, and they had literally one person who had industry experience. That was it for a few years. Like that is insane. I wouldn't trust anyone apart from this one person. Maybe this one person with that. But then this might be an animator. You wouldn't trust him for effects feedback just because he's worked at Weta or Valve or whatever. Doesn't mean that he has any level of he has any legitimacy for that. Like I've been working as a character modeler. I can't really feedback your technical animation and that kind of stuff. Like I'm just not qualified for that.
But it's also, I think it's important to note that, like, it shouldn't scare you off from applying to a bunch of places.
No, not at all.
It's just more of a know what you're getting yourself into.
Yeah.
Because I think the issue is that for some reason with a lot of teachers and friends that you go to feedback for, like don't go to your family for feedback, for instance.
Never.
Is that you get put on this pedestal where you're told, oh, you're the best. You can do anything. When in reality, you're not the best. And you can't do everything. I know that sounds super harsh as well, but it's a competitive field and whoever is better gets the job. That's the harsh truth of it. So finding someone you can trust is also super hard. Finding someone you can trust for feedback is extremely hard.
Yeah, it really is. That is one of the hardest things you can really do. But once you have someone who can give you consistent feedback, that is so useful. So how do you find these people? That's just a tricky one. It could be teachers you had before, like people from the industry. It could be we have for instance like a FlippedNormals Discord server now, which you can find on hub.flippednormals.com. Which we can get people give each other feedback there. You find people just around. The point is, once you find them, you just need to.
You have forums like Polycount. It seems like it's also a good place. On the Discord, Henning and I are frequently there as well. But there's a bunch of really talented people that are always willing to give feedback. So I think that's really good. But I think if you foster a community, unlike Facebook, Facebook to me is a community that's fostered to be like, look at this great thing I did, and everyone goes, it's a great thing you did. But if you foster a community that's centered around honest feedback, then people aren't just going to go, oh yeah, that's so great. That's amazing. You're the best. Woo. No, they actually give you honest feedback. And I think that's the important part.
I heard a nice quote some years ago, which kind of stuck with me. It was about why you struggle with insecurity. And it's like, the reason you struggle with insecurity is because you compare your behind-the-scenes footage with somebody else's highlight reel. And I think that's very true. Like, Facebook is everyone's highlight reel. This is not where you go to show your behind-the-scenes footage. And behind-the-scenes footage is where the movie gets made. That's where everything is made. Your highlights, that is like the end result of it. If you're only seeing people's best work at all times with no weakness at any point, that's not representative. You need to see their struggle. And that's what you can see on the forums. You see work in progress threads, keep posting work in progress threads. Like, I find Twitter actually to be better for feedback than Facebook, because there you connect with people you don't know. Well, Facebook, you connect with people you do know. You have your friends and family from uni and school and all that kind of stuff. So I find Twitter actually to be a pretty useful place in order to at least meet people who can give you proper feedback.
Like, it reminds me of... so it's always popular to talk about concept art and finished concept art, or like, finished illustrations. Because oftentimes I think people confuse box art or whatever's on the cover of a a magazine or something with concept art. When in reality it's not. That's an illustration.
Yeah.
Like, if you look at the concept art, there are some fantastic concept artists out there. That's not what I'm saying. But it's a lot more less refined than the final illustration, which you spend hours trying to work up. Because as a concept artist, you just have to turn out a lot of concepts really quickly. So there's a different level in terms of like finish to the pieces. And if all they see, they go to ArtStation and they see concept art, and all they see are like finished illustration from League of Legends or whatever for new heroes or something, you go like, oh yeah, okay, that's concept art. But in reality, that's an illustration that people spend days, weeks working on.
Yeah, I like to think of concept art not as concept art, but as idea art. This is really where you need to just generate ideas for it. Yeah. Illustration and concept art are two very different things, like Morten is correctly as you're saying. So one of the things we also want to talk about in this video as well is not just a harsh truth of Facebook likes, but it is that once you get into a job like this, which is awesome, like Morten and we had some jobs which we were really happy with. Like, we worked as character modelers, concept artists, like we do a bunch of stuff there for films. And that is honestly one of the biggest honors I've had in my life, to work with these people. Like, it was such a privilege to work with the talented people, like when I was at NPC and then at DNEG later on. The talent there is insane. Yeah. So leaving that was really bittersweet for me, because it was a hard job to get. We worked really hard. Like I said, Morten and I, we worked for like 10 years just to get even in there. Yeah. But once you are in there, and this is not a critique on any studio, it is just that it becomes a job. You work from like 9 to 6, and then should work from 9 to 6, and then you just get into the routine. You come in there, you have some breakfast, you see the same people day in, day out. You have supervisor, you have a clear hierarchy. You go into dailies, you get your tasks, you get your feedback. And let's say you're only working on the coolest stuff. Like, so you're only doing creatures. Even that becomes repetitive in the way that if you're sculpting something day in and day out, I mean, it's awesome. It's an insane job to have. But it still becomes a job. And that's not because we're young millennials who are like, oh, we're super spoiled and we only want the coolest stuff. It's just that
we're never happy with anything. Give me some avocado on my toast. Can't afford a house.
Exactly. So it's not that we're trying to be spoiled millennials, which we might be, but who knows? Yeah. But it's more that we're trying to just have a realistic view of this, that any person I've worked with for more than 2 years in this industry have come to the realization that it is just a job. In the beginning, you're super enthusiastic. I mean, we're still enthusiastic. It's awesome to do it. But we never grew bitter and all that. It was just that it becomes a job. Yeah. You get into the routine, and once you worked on your 7th movie and it's another creature, it is another creature. Yeah.
And they're pretty similar, and
anatomy is anatomy. There are some different proportions here. So it goes from the point where you're like, this is the craziest stuff I've ever worked on, to it's a job, it's a career.
Like, it's not about, I know there's like harsh truths of a job and stuff, but it's not to bring people down and think to themselves, oh God, okay, so even if I become like hotshot effects artist, then I'm just getting tired of making explosions all day. That's not what we're saying.
No.
The thing is, like, I still, even up until the day I quit, I was still enjoying going to work every day. Yeah. Because I get to work on cool monsters, I get to do concepting for cool stuff, but there's also everyday tasks in there. Yeah. Still have to make a digidouble. I still have to soft select this part of a boot to make it not intersect with this mesh. I still have to fix some UVs.
Reduce a mesh like crazy. Hit the reduce button. Use edit edge flow. Fix that kind of stuff.
And sometimes you're just gonna know, okay, this is the next month. Yeah. I'm just reducing models.
This is podcast land for a month.
Yeah. But the same thing goes for other professions in there as well. Like, let's say you have an effects artist. It's not just all about explosions.
No.
A lot of effects artists do dust. I think that's the majority of what they do. They do, like, someone puts their foot down, there's a little dust cloud, or, you know, there's dust in the distance, or whatever it is. Like, for riggers, it's not just about doing cool deformation and stuff. There's also all the technical bits.
Yeah.
Oh, my rig is broken. Oh, this doesn't work. So this goes through for all the professions in there.
Yeah, we were talking about this just before as well. Like, no, we were recording that. When we were at FMX in 2014, there was a talk about Pixar, and they were talking about, I think it was Monsters University, and they were talking about how they would simulate or at least animate the steps in the staircase when the heavy character was walking down. I think it was Sully walking down there. And it's like, that is an effects artist at Pixar. Now, that is an awesome job to have. That is a cool studio and all that. And I'm sure these people are doing awesome stuff as well. They're doing the craziest level. But you have also simulate a step in a staircase when a monster is walking down it, which is to the point you can barely see it. You can totally feel these kind of things, and they're important. But it's like, it's not just the glamorous things. And that is what all the behind-the-scenes footage are showing. They're showing you're showing a dude with like a Cintiq, and they're sculpting monsters at Weta Workshop, and it's all fun and games and all that. And yeah, that is a big part of it. But that's kind of the highlights reel. That is the highlight reel of behind the scenes.
I've been a part of that whole recording behind the scenes, and it's so ridiculous because first of all, like, you have like a camera team that comes in, and then they go, can you just look busy, just do some work. So you take your model into ZBrush, and then you just spin it around. Yeah, you just go like, yeah, so I'm super busy now. Yeah, doing some stuff.
Yeah,
it's ridiculous.
Or what some people do is they smooth off their entire model. First, they make a morph target, they smooth off their entire model, and now you're just sculpting it back with a morph brush. So it looks like you're just sculpting from nothing.
And you're just doing magic instantly.
Yeah. How do you do it? It's literally fake.
I think one of the things that is nice about this industry, and something that can break up the monotony of doing the same thing over and over again, is it's both like a good and a bad thing about this industry, is the jumping around different companies, doing different kind of jobs. So if like you go to a new company, that's a new culture, that's new people.
New cereal.
New cereal, maybe shitty kitchen or something. That can really help. You know, not that you're just like, okay, I'm here for a month, I'll go to the next one. I'm here for a month, go to the next one. But I've been in different places also doing freelance and stuff. I was in Japan for a month working for a company there. I went to Norway for a month or so as well to work for a company there. And, you know, doing some freelance, going back to Denmark, staying here in London, working for different companies. And that's really one of the awesome parts, I think, about this job, is that you get to move around. Where it seems like from, like, my girlfriend, she works in games. And it seems like from talking to her and her colleagues, in games it's a lot more common to stay at a company for longer, I think, because the development time for a game is usually a lot longer than a film.
Yeah, a film you might be on a show for like 2 to 6 months or so. That's fairly common. Maybe you, in a freak accident, you end up on like Ready Player One for a year and a half.
Or like a Geostorm, which just
4 years,
which just never wants to die.
Yeah, I'm sure they're still working on it currently.
Or what's the new who's making the new Jungle Book?
Oh yeah,
is it Disney or?
Oh yeah, the Warner Brothers one.
Yeah.
The Mowgli one.
That's freaky.
Yeah, you don't want to be on that.
Yeah. Sorry to everyone who's on that.
But it's a really good point you bring up with the whole thing. You can travel a lot as well. And one of the things I really enjoy about this industry is that you meet people from all over the world. Like, you meet people from like Africa and all the different countries just around the world, Asia, all the countries in Europe. You meet a lot of Italians.
Italians and French people.
Yeah.
I think that's...
And the Spanish are also seeing a lot of them as well.
Okay.
Yeah. There's definitely an Italian and French mafia in all the VFX studios in London.
For sure. I'm wondering, because it's interesting, because they have sort of their own... I know, like, especially for French people, you know, they have their own 3D sites in French, their own 3D tutorial sites in French, which keeps it a little more hidden. It's like a hidden gym that you don't know about. A gym.
Hidden gym in old French you go to live.
3D gym.
So it's an awesome field to work in. We just wanna talk about this. The main point about this video I really want to make is that be aware that it becomes a job, because if you're not, then suddenly you're going to be like 3-4 years into this field, maybe more than that, and you're like, oh shit, This is my life now. It's only work. You're only doing overtime. You're doing weekends, and that is your life now. By realizing that it does become a job early on, you can now start doing different things. You can start actually having a life outside of it. Like, actually see friends, making that a priority, focusing on mental health, focusing properly on your sleep and your fitness level, traveling around and actually taking some time off work.
Yeah.
Like really just getting something which inspires you outside of work. Because if you are, let's say you're a junior and you're just loving your job and you're like, oh, that's not going to happen to me. It will happen to you because it is literally a job.
Yeah.
It is, yes, it's a different job where you can make a lot of cool stuff, but it is a job like any other job like that. So by being aware of that, you can now just preemptively just get a life.
Yeah, it's not like you should enter the workplace and like already be jaded.
No,
that's
not at all.
But it's just being aware of it. I mean, and that's the thing. Like I said before, I've never gone to work and felt like, oh, this sucks.
No.
Wow. That was like this one period. I was working on some terrible Gods of Egypt. We do bricks for 6 months. You really start to question things in life.
But apart from that,
but it's interesting because I've worked with people that have been, I don't know, maybe mid 40s, start 50s or something like that in VFX. And boy, those people are, I don't know, like it's like, I don't know what happens when you hit that age, but some of them are intense to work with.
Yeah.
Because I don't know, I think they just realized, they've realized that it's a job for a long time.
Yeah.
But it's not to be confused. I think this is the most awesome job you can have in the entire world.
Yeah.
When I was younger, I worked in a grocery store and I've worked on like a campsite and I've done a bunch of different shitty jobs.
I worked in construction. I was outside being cold, making concrete for like 2 years.
Yeah, so it's a lot better to make monsters inside and be comfortable.
You're working inside. This is amazing. You have an aircon and you're not wet all the time.
Yeah.
Don't go into construction if you live in a city where it rains 270 days a year. Just a little tip for you guys.
Oh, and as a little side note, Henning mentioned the whole thing about overtime and weekends. We're totally doing a video about that at some point. Hint, you don't have to.
Yeah. We would actually love to hear your thoughts on overtime as well. Essentially all of the things we're talking about now.
Yeah.
But it really boils down to, at least for me, get a hobby, get something. I'm currently learning Chinese. I'm starting some martial arts soon. I was doing Krav Maga for a bit, where you learn to kick people in the groin and then run away. Good stuff.
Yeah.
We've been doing some rock climbing, both of us.
I did some blacksmithing recently, actually. That was really cool. It's kind of like 3D modeling, but just so much harder. Like manipulating metal is kind of like you have a box, but you have no undo.
Yeah.
And it has to be like 900 degrees in order for you to make something.
And you get super thick arms.
That's also true. Yeah. No, but like I think hobbies are really a good way to sort of also break it up. I think it's cool that you go home and you work on your own thing.
Yeah.
Because that's what we're doing.
I mean, that's also a hobby.
Yes.
Like that is also like when you are doing stuff in a production, you are not doing monsters or stuff for yourself. And that is really hard to accept that. Even if you are a concept artist, and which is one of the most creative things in this field, you're still working for somebody else. You still don't have full creative say of what you're doing. If you do, that's awesome, but that's a rare thing.
Yeah.
Most of the time, it's client work. So, I mean, let's say you are, like in our case, like we're sculptors. I'm doing Seabird since we had milk in kindergarten and all that, like super early stuff here.
That's when we started.
Yeah. But it's like, so going home and sculpting can be super relaxing and super zen. That is a legit hobby. It's just get something which is not just work.
Yeah, I think it's important to also sort of like try and to separate those two, because even if you go home and you do the same thing you do at work, that can, like, sometimes maybe you end up losing the spark a little bit, and so it can be tricky to find the motivation there sometimes.
Yeah, so that is really like the harsh truth about working in the creative industry is you could talk about like all kinds of different things here, like or like overtime and like how people are overworked and all. but in general, this for me, this is one of the biggest things which kind of came as a surprise in a way, that it becomes a job.
Yeah.
Which you just gotta accept that. Like, it's not it's like the 5 stages of grief. Like, it's like if you're not accepting, you're in the first step, which is denial. It is a job.
Yeah.
Like that's a fact.
But it's an awesome job.
It's an awesome job.
Yeah.
Where we really want to end this on a good note. Just that it is, like we have been saying here. It was a real privilege to work. We're still in industry, but still, because we're doing different things.
No, we're becoming the teachers that aren't going to be in the industry, and then so we'll be able to like give people feedback for 3 months, and then we'll be out of date, and we'll just be trash. So if anyone wants feedback, you've got about 3 months until we are no longer qualified, because then you can show us this video and be like, but you said yourself that you just have teachers who aren't. Oh shit. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So. Let me be clear there. The teachers we're talking about that who aren't relevant. They're not people who's making their own tutorial company next to it and still doing stuff. It is people who worked at.
So we're an exception.
Yeah, we're totally an exception here.
Okay.
Particularly because we're doing a tutorial company. No, but it's really people who worked in a commercial studio in the mid-90s, 25 years ago, and they were like, yeah, I totally know how the industry works today. Yeah, we texture in Photoshop version.
Body paint.
Yeah. version
That being
2.
said, I still think, you definitely have teachers who don't work in the industry that are still qualified, because there's nothing wrong with being self-taught.
Absolutely.
You have access to a bunch of really cool resources everywhere online. There's so much free stuff on YouTube. So that, like, it doesn't mean that just because you're don't have industry experience that you don't have the right or qualifications to feedback someone. You might not just be up to date on what people are doing in the industry and what tools they're using. So
it just means you can't talk specifics about what software.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't detract from the sort of overall artistic feedback that you can give people.
No,
you can still look at a model and be like, well, that face looks like a dog, not a human. So you should redo that.
Yeah. So we'd be really interested to hear your thoughts on this as well. Like, have you encountered any harsh truth while working in the industry? Do you have any questions about it, like about generally working in the creative industry? And we're not just talking about film or VFX. All of this applies to gaming or photography or whatever it is you might be doing. This is a general thing.
Yeah, really. I mean, we're just talking from a VFX point of view. But like, I also worked in print and design for a while. Yeah. And that also becomes a job. It doesn't matter. It's all the same. But I'd be very interested to hear from you guys what you have to say on the topic.
Yeah.
So I guess that's kind of it. So thank you for watching. And you want to see more content like this in the future, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe.